Hey everyone! Welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, hi, my name is Sarah. I am a pre-nursing student and a CNA student who applied to nursing school to hopefully get into this for this fall. I did take the ATITs. If you see the title of this video, this is how I got an exemplary score of a 96. All right, before we get into the video, okay. So in this video, we're going to go over a few things. It is a little bit of a long video, so I wanted to give you an intro just so you're not like, what the heck is this video? So I'll be going over what I did last year, just briefly to study, what I did this year, resources that I used, tips and tricks for each of the individual sections, how to be a quicker test taker, because I did take my test in like 2 hours. Basically, this is a video of like what I did. I'm literally saying everything. I'm spilling all the tea. What I did to score a 96 on the T's, which is crazy. So yeah, if you want to know more, keep watching. So before I get into the video, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who has been supporting me on my journey through nursing school so far. It really does mean a lot. If you don't know, this is my second time around applying to nursing school. I took the T's last year and I got an advanced score of an 86. And because I took the T's last year, this is like my second time, this is the second time I took the T's, but because I took it last year, I was able to get like a really strong base of things that they test on the T's. And while I did take the ATI's T's 6 last year and I took the 7 this year, I really don't think that too much changed between the two tests. Content-wise, it's pretty much the same. It's just that they ask like different, they'll ask like, I don't know how to say this, like different concentrations of topics. So what I mean by that is they might have on the ATIT 6 asked like way more anatomy questions than anything else. And then on the T7, it might be like a little bit more even between like biology, chemistry, and anatomy. So like the content itself, I don't really think changed that much. On my test, I happened to get all multiple choice questions, so I wouldn't say that the T7 was necessarily harder than the 6, just at least in my experience. It was a little bit tricky to study for, which I'll get into a little bit later in the video, but I just wanted to give you some background. If you want to know how I studied last year to get the really strong foundation that I was able to build upon, I did make a video. I'll put it in the cards, how I think it's called like how to study for the ATITs, and the thumbnail's me looking like a little bit crazy, but anyways, this video will kind of just focus on how I studied this year. But again, if you want to like know how I studied I think for 5 weeks last year, and I studied for about like 4 or 5 hours a day, pretty much every day for 5 weeks. It was really intense. But if you want to know more about that, I would watch that video and then come back to this one. Okay, so you might have noticed that I posted a video that said how to ace the T's in a week. And the video is basically explaining if you had a week to study, how I would approach it, right? Because there are so many of us who are procrastinators like me. And whether, you know, you procrastinate because it's overwhelming and then you kind of like put yourself in a corner by not really having that much time to study, or maybe you didn't know that you'd be applying to nursing school and you have a super condensed timeline for taking the test. Whatever your situation was, I wanted to post that video because I studied for about a week before taking my test, which I do not recommend. I think the only reason why I was able to do that was because I did pretty well last year, so I didn't really have too much that I needed to improve on. So I went into studying for the test kind of having an idea already of what my strengths and weaknesses were based off of my scores from last year. Like for example, I got a perfect score in math, so I knew I would not be studying for the math that much, maybe just reviewing here and there. I didn't really think it would take me that long. I started with the approach of, well, first I tried studying in October, which did not go well. I think I literally studied like one day. I studied the English section because that was my weakest score from last year. So what I was doing was I was using the ATIT study manual and just reading through, refreshing myself on the rules, really trying to understand it, because I feel like when we read study books or watch videos online, you kind of like passively look at the information and you may not fully be able to like retain it because you don't understand it. Beyond things that are just memorization, like memorizing a math formula for like the area of a triangle, like if you don't know how to multiply, for example, half of the base times the height, you won't understand how the formula works. Like if you, what I mean, like, you know, understanding that that a triangle is like half of a rectangle. So if you multiply the base times the height, you're actually getting the area of the rectangle, and so you have it to get the area of the triangle. But if you can't understand it conceptually, it's going to be harder to memorize that, just as an example. So for English, I had a hard time fully understanding the difference between like a compound complex sentence and a compound sentence. But once I understood that, once I understood what a dependent clause is and what an independent clause is, it just makes sense, which I'll get into later. I'm gonna get into tips about how to, you know, like little tips and tricks for understanding things for each of the sections, but just, you know, walking you through like how I studied first. So yeah, I studied for about a day on the English section, and then I took like a little mini practice quiz, and I actually don't remember what I got on it. Let me look. So when I took my little mini English practice quiz, and what I mean is the ATIT study manual, this is the one I used. I used the updated one because I had the one from last year, but I, you know, kind of highlighted it. I marked up all the questions in it, whatever. So I just, you know, I wanted a new one. There's a little like quiz, like it looks like this, you know, in the back of each section. I treated it as like a mini practice test just for that section, and I got an 85, which was hopeful because it was 10 points higher than my actual score from last year. So I was like, okay, so I, you know, improved. I really was not, I mean, mentally I was aiming for a 90 or above. However, I didn't think it was realistic for me. So in my head, I was like, as long as I do as well as I did last year, that's all I want. If I do better, great. But I was really preparing myself to get another advanced score. So yeah, that's what I did. And then a lot of time passed because I was taking anatomy at the time, and I was taking in-person classes. I was working, I had a lot going on. And I was like, oh, I really don't have time to study for the T's. Like I did not have the time that I thought I would have. So I knew I needed to take my test around Christmas time. I'm like, okay, like I need to take this. How am I gonna do it? And I figured the best way was to take a practice test, figure out where my weak areas were, and then, you know, study the weak areas to try to just bring those up as much as possible. And I will say that taking a college level anatomy and physiology class helped me so much with the science. Like that's, I think, how I was able to do so well, because I would not rely on the ATI study manual all by itself if you're trying to do well on the T's. The reason why I say that is because for the reading, the math, and the English, you should be fine. You know, kind of, especially for the reading and the English, you'll be fine as long as you know, understand what they're asking and understand why the right answers are right and why the wrong answers are wrong. However, for the science section specifically, I really don't think that the ATI study manual prepares you at all, at least for the anatomy questions. For the scientific process, for chemistry, for biology, even the little bit of microbiome that's on the ATIT 7, I think you're totally fine. However, for anatomy, I got questions that they literally did not even touch upon once, not even in the slightest bit. I know that for a fact. So I think if you want to do really well in the science, I'd recommend, if you're looking for a more in-depth resource, the Mometrics book for the science section. If you're looking for something really easy to understand, so you have a really firm foundation, the Smart Edition Academy is a great resource. That's what I used this year. So that's just my little tidbit on that. Well, so what I did was I took an ATI practice test. I got an 85 on that, and then I used the, whatchamacallit, I'll show you what it looks like. When you take a practice test, you'll see your score, and then they will show you topics to review, and it correlates with the ATIT study manual, which is like really helpful. So this is what it looks like on my actual test, but it's the same thing for every test you take with ATI. So I'm gonna show you what it looks like. That's what it looks like on, if you like scroll down like underneath your score, you'll see the topics to review. I took my practice test and that is literally what I studied, just flat out. I took a little mental note as I was taking my practice test, like if there was something I really like didn't know for sure, you know, I would look over because maybe I just happened to guess right, but I didn't really know for sure what the answer was. I would want to like look over that for my test, because I ended up really studying 2 days before my test and then the day of my test. So in total, I maybe studied like 4 days for the T's, which again, I don't recommend, but this is just what I did. So the resources that I use that I recommend if you want to do well, Mometrics. For the Mometrics, I think it's like the study secrets for ATIT 7 for the science section. That's super in-depth though, so I would recommend, if you haven't taken anatomy and physiology already, you could use the ATIT study manual as like a primer just to understand like the very, very basics of anatomy. Smart Edition Academy is like, in my opinion, a really good mixture of just in-depth enough so if you got like a really difficult question, you could critical think your way to the right answer, but easy to understand. Because I remember reading Mometrics last year and it stressed me out because like they have so much in there, and while the T's may ask questions about things that are in there, like I get confused, and that might just be me. So if you're looking for something in depth that will really, really super prepare you for that test, that's a really, really good one. However, for me personally, while I find that book helpful in a sense, it doesn't really help me if I don't know what's going on when I'm reading it. So I don't know. So that was the 3 resources that I recommend the most are the ATIT study manual. If you could do the package with the practice tests, I highly recommend that, because I think that is how I was able to study in just a few days, because I was able to just fine tune what I needed. And then the Smart Edition Academy, I prefer the online course, like the videos, just because like I don't do well with books nowadays. Like I just get so distracted so easily. Like the videos are like engaging and stuff. So I used that to study for the science, because like I said, the ATI book, it's kind of meh when it comes to the science section. And then yeah, so the ATIT study manual, the Mometrics study secrets, and the Smart Edition Academy are the 3 ones that I recommend. Personally, I don't really recommend the ATI Smart Prep, because what's gonna end up happening, if you haven't purchased it before, this was my first year doing it, and you basically take like a practice quiz for a specific section, and then they will tell you what you need to work on, and it's kind of pointless if you have the book and you're just doing that anyway. Like, I don't know, that's my opinion. So I don't think you need to waste money on that, but I do find the study manual helpful in all the sections but science, and I do find the practice test super helpful, because I think I only took practice test A, and practice test A is about the level of difficulty that I saw on my actual test. I didn't take B yet. I don't think I'm going to, because I don't need to, but I think it's pretty on par with what you're actually going to see on the test. I did score 10 points higher on my actual test than on my practice test, but I think it's about what the level of difficulty that you'll see. So that is how I studied, and just things that I recommend. And as far as tips and tricks for each of the individual sections, so for the reading section, what helps me the most improve my score for reading, I think I got like an 86 last year and then a 97 in the reading section this year. What helped me the most was, because I'm an anxious test taker, and I start shaking, and I feel like I'm just scared of that I'll run out of time, because it's happened before on my practice test. Like I'll try to read the question and read it over again, and I'll read the passage twice to really feel like I, know what I'm reading. What I will do is I will read the question first. So say the question is asking about something in the second paragraph, for example, like what is the main idea of the second paragraph? I will read the first paragraph of the passage. I'll go down all the way through the second paragraph, and I will stop and then answer that question. This way I don't waste time reading paragraphs 3, 4, 5 to answer a question that's only about the second paragraph. And I'll answer it. If it's a main idea question, a trick that I've used that I noticed ATI does is they will put, if you have, you know, a difficult time with like main idea summary type questions, something that they will do is they will put one or two of their answer choices will be details. If your answer choice that you're looking at, the keywords of the answer choice closely matches just one of the sentences, that's probably not your answer. It's probably a detail. And then they might just like, one of the answer choices might be something that has absolutely nothing to do with what they were talking about in the passage. And then one of them is probably the right answer. So if your answer choice basically is a detail, it's probably not the summary or the main idea. So I would just watch out for that. So say we answered our main idea question, we moved on to the second question, and that's asking, you know, what does this word mean in the 4th paragraph? So then I'd read the 3rd, I'd read the 4th, I would, you know, hopefully know what the word meant based off of the context, and answer the question. And then for conclusion type questions, like what's a logical conclusion the reader can make based off of the passage, I would look for the answer choice that is like directly supported by the text. What I used to do in the past was make my own inferences. I'd kind of like fill in the blanks in my head, but I've learned to not do that. And, you know, for example, if the passage is talking about, I don't know, I'm making something up, smoke detectors, right? And, you know, the passage was saying something like how the fire department answers, you know, X amount of calls per year, or the fire department responds to like X amount of calls per year about the smoke alarm going off or something, and that daylight savings time is the time to change the battery, something, I don't know. A logical conclusion could be that like if the text said something like you can prevent the smoke alarm going off by like not leaving your stove on or something, you could say that like people leaving the stove on contributes to fires. If, you know, kind of like something that was supported by the text, you probably wouldn't say something like, you know, most of the calls the fire department responds to, I'm trying to think, oh my gosh, I can't think, carbon monoxide detector going off. It's probably not it, because I didn't say anything about carbon monoxide in the text. Like that's basically the point that I'm getting at. And then what else we're reading? Oh, facts and opinion. And then I guess therefore informative versus persuasive, because sometimes that can get a little bit tricky. I've learned that facts and opinion questions, you might be able to detect bias in an opinion based off of if someone says like you should do this, this was any sort of like adjective that can't really be verified, it's kind of subjective, like this was awful, this was beautiful, this was sad or something, versus like a fact like they arrived promptly at 2 p.m. While promptly is a descriptor word, the 2 p.m. part, you know, could be verified if they really were supposed to be there too. I'm using just the weirdest examples in my head that I can think of. And then if something is meant to inform, you're probably not going to see many opinions. It's going to be very straightforward, not a lot of bias in there. However, if something was more persuasive, you might be able to detect a mixture of facts and opinions because someone's making an argument because they want you to think a certain way. That was how I was able to figure out which was which, because like at first I was like, but if they're arguing something, are they supposed to like inform you about something? But no, if there's an opinion in the passage, it's probably persuasive. And then descriptive is going to be like very like poetic in nature, like lots of imagery, lots of like, I don't know, like literary type elements in it. I think that's it for my tips on the reading. On to math. Math, I got 100% last year and this year. Let's see, something that I did on my test this year, that I also did last year that helped me a lot, was I do every single question twice. If time is not your friend, obviously don't do this. However, if you do have time, I would try to do every question twice. Read the question, do the problem, hopefully matches one of the answer choices. Read it again, do the problem again, put it in the calculator a second time. Because I am able to catch mistakes that way. Say, you know, I type something into the calculator wrong, or, you know, for example, I'll forget to multiply something by 2, or like have something. Trust me, it helps. Also, if you can figure out a way to work backwards, that helps too, to like check yourself so you know you have the right answer before you move on to the next question. I do this all the time with proportions. For proportions specifically, if you are able to know where to put the proportion, if you divide, you know, because I like cross multiply and divide, you know, to find x. If you divide each side of the equal sign, they should be the same number, and that is how you check yourself with proportions, other than just doing the problem twice. You know, like if your proportions are 1/5 equals 2/x, you solve for x, x is 10, you divide 1 by 5, and you also divide 2 by 10, and they should be the same number. I don't know, it's like a weird thing. Just in case you have like issues with proportions. And then some of us have issues with visualizing fractions. Something that helps me, and it helps me every single time, if I don't know, say, you know, they'll ask on the test like which of these numbers or is the greatest, or which of these numbers is the least, and then your answer choices will be like 3/4, 5/8, 0.67, or like I don't know, like 5.52. If you didn't know which one was the greatest, if they asked which one was the greatest or which one was the least, you just divide the fraction into the calculator, and then you would get decimal. So then you could just compare the decimals to see which ones. I don't know, that helped me. What else? Just like a little review of stats, because I didn't take statistics up until this year. So last year, I got a few questions on the HIT 7 about statistics, just very basic things like graphs type stuff, about like relationships. So if something has a positive relationship or direct relationship, one variable is going to increase and the other variable is also going to increase. So if this is your axis, your line's going to go up like this. You know, this is like your axis. It's going to go like this. An inverse relationship or negative is when one variable increases, the other decreases. And then if this is your axis, the line is going to kind of like come down and make a triangle. If there is no relationship, they might show you this on like a scatter plot thing. Your axis is going to look like this, and you're just going to have like dots all over the place. It's not really gonna, you're not really going to be able to form a line. And then for distribution, if something is bell-shaped, you're gonna have your axis, and then it's gonna kind of go like this. It's gonna peak in the middle, and then it's gonna be relatively even on both sides. If something is skewed to the right, your axis is like this. It's gonna, I have to think about which side is my right. I'm gonna go on my right, just in case. I don't know if this is gonna be flipped on the video, but if your axis is like this, skewed right, it's gonna go up, and then it's gonna, like the whole bell shape is gonna be shifted over to the right. And then skewed left is same idea, except it's gonna peak very kind of close to the axis here and go down. And then if it's uniform, it's gonna look like this, and it's pretty much gonna be just a straight horizontal line. So I don't remember if that was on the T6 last year, but it was on, I know for a fact it was on the 7 this year. So just going over that little bit of information. For math, for area, I just memorized the conversions for pounds to kilograms. I did feet to yards, inches to feet. I did ounces to milliliters. If you don't know, I'm pretty sure it's 1 ounce to 30 milliliters. I only knew that from my CNA class. I did not think to memorize that for the test. And then cc is equal to a milliliter, just in case you needed to know that. What else? I'm pretty sure pounds to ounces as well. And then for area, I'm pretty sure you would have needed to know area of a rectangle, area of a triangle, circle, volume of a sphere, rectangular prism. I haven't really seen like pyramid come up. because that scared me. The formula always scares me. You may need to know area of a trapezoid. You probably will need to know circumference of a circle, perimeter of just basic objects, or, you know, basic shapes and stuff. What else? And then, oh, if you see a semicircle attached to, like, I don't know, this is gonna look really weird. A semicircle, like, attached to, like a square, you'd basically find the area, or if it's perimeter, find the perimeter of the, you know, the square. If it's area, you know, it's all 4 sides. If it's square, it's just 3. And then half of the area of the circle. So you would find the area of the circle and just divide it by half. Or if it's perimeter, same things. You do circumference, half. I think that's all my tips for the math section. And now for the science. So science is a little bit tricky to just give you like quick little tips and tricks. However, I will try my best. So I think what helped me, because I did not understand every single little thing there is to know about anatomy, physiology, biology, chemistry, and microbiology to do as well as I did on the science. I got like a 95.5, I think, on the science section, which blew me out of the water. I was like shocked. So something that helped me was understanding like the root words for anatomy. You know, knowing, I don't know, like HEPA is like liver, and knowing cardi is heart, and like peri is around, and pleura is lungs, like things like that. Knowing the general, I didn't need to know like every single muscle or every single bone, but just knowing generally where things are, like knowing the humerus is in your arm, the brachia, you know, again with like root words kind of, brachy is like in your arm, so like you have the brachial artery, you know, brachial is just arm region, you know, knowing your radius and your ulnus in your arm, knowing, you know, femur is in your thigh. Also, I guess knowing, I guess something that they asked like directly was asking about like flat, long bones, short bones, things like that. So like the bones in your wrists are like short bones, your ribs are flat bones, things like that. Like your femur's like a long bone. And then knowing body systems helps a lot, and actually knowing it instead of memorizing it. Something that helps me study, I did this more so last year, but it works so well. Like you retain the information so well when you do this, is you teach someone, you know, whether you're teaching a classmate, teaching a teddy bear, teaching your dog or your mom or brother or whatever, teaching people on the internet, making a review video on the internet, saying things out loud and forcing yourself to like not look at the notes and almost like teach it from memory, shows that you not only are able to remember things, but you kind of like understand them better when you say things out loud. That helps me so much, because I didn't take anatomy last year, but I took it this year, and so all the things I remembered from last year I took into my anatomy class this year, and I like built on that, and that really helps me do well. I may make an updated video on science if you guys want me to, because some things changed just like a little tiny bit. Well, one, I have more knowledge on anatomy, physiology in general, so I can like add more things. And then two, they added like a little tiny microbiology section, basically focusing on like just really surface level things. Like they did not get in depth at all, because I'm taking microbiome now, and I think literally it would probably be chapter 1 of a microbiome textbook, and that's all you would need to know. They just briefly went over viruses, fungi, bacteria. Pretty sure that's it, really. Let me look. Like they really did this, they scratched like the surface level. Let me see. I don't even know if I passed it. Oh, they did. Protozoa, parasites, infectious versus non-infectious diseases, you know, parasites, like very surface level. Microscopes, very surface level. So if you've not taken microbiome and you're stressing out about it, you'll be fine, as long as you look up maybe just like intro to microbiome, or just looking up, you know, the difference between a virus and a bacteria, difference between, you know, like it's I would say that's probably the easiest section on the science, is the microbiome part. I forgot what I was saying. What was I saying? Oh, updated video. So yeah, if you guys want me to make an updated video, I totally can. It just might take me a little bit of time because I'm in school again and I'm working, so it takes me a really long time to upload a video, so I'm so sorry about that. So yeah, let's see. Science. Oh yeah, also, please comment if you have any questions about anything while you're studying, because I will answer. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I reply to pretty much like every comment. And if I don't reply to your comment, I don't see it. I'm so sorry. For whatever reason, like YouTube won't show me certain comments. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to ignore you. I also respond to emails. You can email me at, I'm pretty sure it's contact@delightfullysour.com. I don't really respond as well to my DMs. I forget to check Instagram because I don't have any notifications on because it like distracts me. So if you DM me and it takes me forever to respond, I promise I'm not ignoring you. I just don't think to look at them. So I'm so sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to say that, just, you know. I'm trying to think of what else. Oh yes, so understanding the body systems. So I got some questions on, let's see, the nervous system. I feel like they'll ask ones on the heart every year. They'll ask the urinary system. I feel like every year they'll ask stuff on. I also got very few questions on the muscular system. I really didn't get many at all, but heart, respiratory, urinary, reproductive system they ask a lot. Oh, and they do ask about hormones as well, so I would make sure you know those. Especially, I think the big ones are like thyroid hormone, ADH, growth hormone. I feel like they tend to always ask about like testosterone, estrogen, luteinizing hormone, and what's the other one? Follicle stimulating hormone. I feel like they ask questions surrounding those hormones like every year. At least both years that I've taken the test, I've gotten hormone questions. So the endocrine system, I would know well. What else? I guess the function of each organ in relation to like how it works in the organ system, but also just like if you can isolate what it does, or like knowing the dietary hormones and like how the stomach breaks down, or secretions, I guess, how the stomach like breaks down. Like, yeah, you know that the stomach like digests food, but like how, you know, like things like that. What else? Oh, the integumentary system, I feel like it's like, you know, they ask questions on that, but not as many anatomy questions as last year. On the HAT 7, they kind of spread out anatomy just like a little bit more, so you get like more bio questions, more chem questions, things like that. So if you haven't taken anatomy and physiology, don't panic. You'll be okay. If you study, you know, you'll be fine. For the English section, this was my most improved section between last year and this year. I increased my score by 20 points. I know, crazy. I did not think. I think I was the most surprised by the English going up, because I was like, wow, oh my gosh. So I got a 93.4 in the English, and I got a 75 last year. So things that helped me improve the most. I didn't get any spelling questions on my T's. Sorry, I'm like the worst speller on the planet. Because what happens is I'll see like okay, I will know the right spelling of a word, but then I see all the wrong spellings and then I get confused. So if you do get spelling questions on your test, I would do your best to study the basic spelling rules. You know, like doubling the consonant, versus times that you would not double the consonant, IE versus EI, you know, like I before E except after C, like that kind of thing. What else? And like also knowing the exceptions, because they will purposely put exceptions on your test and you'll have to know like which one is actually misspelled. Things like that. So spelling, punctuation, I would know when to use a comma. That also ties into knowing a dependent clause and an independent clause, because like that will help you a lot with actually knowing like when to use a comma. When to use a semicolon, how to punctuate quotations correctly, and capitalization rules for that. I would do your best to understand dependent clauses, independent clauses, because that will also help you understand simple, compound, complex, and complex sentences. And then that was most of my test, actually. I would just refresh your knowledge on the writing process, just generally knowing like which order you do things, like proofreading, drafting, editing, citing, brainstorming, like that kind of a thing. And that's pretty much like my tips and tricks on the English section. One of you asked how I finished the test so fast. In case you didn't know, I finished the test in a little under 2 hours, an hour and 50 minutes, and I actually wrote down how long I actually took on each section on my piece of scrap paper. So let's see, 55 minutes. It took me about 40 minutes to get through the reading section. I'm doing just quick math here. 23 minutes to get through the math section, 25 minutes to get through the science section, and then 15 minutes to get through the English section. And so if you're looking for strategies for time management on your test, earlier on I talked about the reading section, you know, just only reading the parts of the passage that you have to, doing your best as you're reading the first time. So if you didn't catch it before, I was kind of talking about how, you know, for example, if the first question that I get on a particular passage is, you know, asking about something in the second paragraph, I'm not going to read the whole passage all the way through. I'm just going to read the first paragraph. I'm going to read all the way through the second paragraph and then look to answer the question. This way, just because, in my opinion, if you're looking at a question that's only asking about the second paragraph, if you read all the way through, you're gonna have to reread the second paragraph again because you're gonna have to like remember what the question was asking. So I only read the questions, you know, up to where I need to, because who knows, maybe after the next question you'll get a new passage and then you would have wasted all of that time reading the whole thing when you only needed to read like a few paragraphs. You know, if the question was asking what's the main idea of the last paragraph and that was the first question you got on that passage, you know, I would probably read the whole thing all the way through. But sometimes you may not need to reread the passage. That was how I was able to get through that relatively quick. The reading section took me the longest because I'm just a slow reader and I'm very thorough. I like to know everything when I'm taking the test. And then I use process of elimination as well. I try my best if I'm really unsure of an answer. I'm the type to literally just be like, well, oh well, eeny, meeny, miny, moe, and I move on. I try, I know this, I mean, it works for me. I got a 97 on the reading section because there were definitely a few questions I was very unsure about, but I will do my best to be a lawyer in my head and I will be like, no, this is the right answer because of this. Because this, while it could be the answer, it doesn't make sense, or this one is the better of the two because I'm able to look at the passage and justify why I think this is the right answer. And I really think that's how I was able to, I think I increased my score by 11 points from last year. I think that's how I was able to do that. Because I really, honestly guys, I did not study for the reading section at all. I didn't do anything. I didn't read anything. I just, you know. So that was how I was able to take the test quickly, kind of. For the reading section, for math, I'm just a fast test taker for math. I've always been. I do the question and I know exactly what I'm doing. I even check myself. I don't know how to, I guess, being able to be a quick test taker in math is just knowing your stuff. Being able to like understand exactly what the question is asking, really quizzing yourself beforehand, like if math is not your strong subject, maybe looking at videos for your test on how to do something, if, you know, proportions is your issue, or, you know, your weaknesses is in like percent off, like discount type questions. Email me, ask me questions. I will definitely, you know, respond. But yeah, looking at videos, trying to teach yourself as best as you can. I think that's really the only way you can get better at math is by practicing the problems. For science, that was kind of like know it or you don't for me. So if I really wasn't sure of a question, eeny, meeny, miny, moe, move on. Because you can go back to a question later with, you know, if you say you didn't finish the science section and you weren't sure of an answer, you could go back as long as it's within the section you're currently working in. So yeah, and then for English, it was kind of know it or you don't. That was like a little bit more, I was able to like go back and forth in my head and debate. I'm like, this might be the right answer, but then I'm like, okay, wait, actually no, it's not, it's this. So yeah, that's kind of like the best advice that I can give on taking a test quickly, other than making sure you get enough sleep, because if you're groggy, you're kind of like not as sharp making sure you're hydrated. And last year, what motivated me to finish my test was I needed to use the bathroom last year. So I was like rushing through my test, but I didn't need to rush this year. I just, you know. I think that is just about it for how I did so well in the T's, as well as tips and tricks that I used to get the score that I got. I know that was a long video, I'm so sorry. If you did make it all the way to the end of this video though, thank you so much for watching. I super appreciate you supporting my channel and encouraging me as I go through my nursing school journey. Hopefully I do get into nursing school this year, because if I don't after this year, girl, I don't know what I'm gonna do, because I think I literally did the best that I possibly could. Like, I've gotten A's in all my prerequisite classes and I now have a 96 on the T's. Like, I don't know what else they want from me. So if I don't get in, I don't know. But anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. If you would like to see my face again, consider subscribing. And like I mentioned earlier in the video, I have pretty much everything that I mentioned in the video listed down below in the description. I am an affiliate of Smart Edition Academy, so it doesn't cost anything extra to you to use the link, but it does support my channel. Maybe would help me buy my nursing school textbooks. And like, you know, obviously I wouldn't recommend anything that I wouldn't use myself, and I have used them last year and this year, so I like them a lot, genuinely. So yeah, I just wanted to say that just before I end the video. So yeah, if you would like to see my face again, consider subscribing, and I will see you next time.